Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I am your host, Tiffany Daniels. And yes, since it is Thursday, we are going back to our Social Security and Supplemental Security Income series. But before we do, real brief disclaimer as per usual, every single article, every single little bit of criteria, like what we're getting ready to go through now, in fact, when it comes to criteria, folks, I'm just going to warn you straight ahead of time. We're going to go over the surface today, and then we're going to be going more in depth because it definitely is not as simple as it's being nicely lined out here. So, but that being said, you'll find links to everything there, right there in the description box with what I hope is actually helpful labels above them so that you know exactly what you're clicking on when you're clicking on it, just in case you want to go ahead and deep dive the subject on your own. I definitely welcome you to go ahead and do so, or share the videos, or even just share the links, because traffic to the channel is not a gigantic priority. Traffic learning about the real information as opposed to the slanted agenda of one side or the other is a hell of a lot more important to me. So please feel free to go ahead and do that. Alright, folks, trigger warnings. We do have this channel marked not for kids for a reason. We do cover, first of all, some dark subjects, such as the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center or Agape Boarding School for Boys. Those videos do go over and provide some vivid descriptions of and clip surveillance footage of people with disabilities, people who are disabled, folks with mental health issues being tortured and abused. And also we do use profanity on this channel. So if your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, folks, parental supervision is advised. Also, this is more of a heads up than a trigger warning. I am a great fan of healthy debate. I am not a fan of mudslinging, chest pounding, ego bruising, bickering like we're all teenagers stuck in high school again nonsense in my comment section. Nor do I tolerate anyone coming in and starting to attack anyone in regards to what their families can and cannot do to help whatsoever at all. Any type of that kind of talk will get you automatically blocked from this channel completely. Nobody has time for that. You want mudslinging? Go on to the political channels. Go watch CNN. Go watch Fox. Go follow Elon and his insanity if you want mudslinging. If you come to this channel, we are here to discuss facts. We are here to welcome healthy debate. We are here to try to bring back some civility to all of this madness, which I admit is kind of a losing cause, but this is my channel. My channel is not a democracy. My country is supposed to be a democracy. My channel is me. And I deal with so much on a day-to-day basis, researching, dealing with morons, dealing with local as well as state and national politics. I just don't have time for it, alright? This is your only warning you're going to get. So watch your P's and Q's, keep it civil. Act like the adults you're supposed to be, instead of purging everyone and forcing us all back into high school mentality like has been going on for the last several decades, alright? It's not a big ask. Okay, so back to what we were saying. We're going to be going over, in particular, supplemental security income, also known as SSI eligibility requirements. We're going to go over just kind of the brief introduction, and then we are going to get more detailed as we continue along in this series. So, who is eligible for supplemental security income? Sorry, allergies. Age 65 or older, blind or disabled. Remember when I said we're going to have a little bit more detail going into the criteria? Yeah, that's why, because the way they have it lined out here, we kind of have to. Alright. And who has limited income, has limited resources, is a U.S. citizen or national or non-citizen in one of the certain alien classifications granted by the Department of Homeland Security, DHS. In general, an alien who is subject to an active warrant for deportation or removal does not meet the non-citizen requirement. Now, I want to address something because I've been saying it everywhere, and I gotta disillusion some of you all. The bulk of the individuals who are on things like supplemental security income are not illegal aliens. The majority of us are disabled people. Disabled elderly, disabled kids, and disabled adults. One of the main reasons is, well, of course you know how Medicaid's kind of the gateway into services. Supplemental security income is very difficult, extremely difficult to obtain. Nobody gets it right off the bat. In fact, the rule of thumb is you are likely to be denied the first application that you make. And it is usually advised that if you want to succeed, you had better go ahead and be prepared to reach out to a lawyer to file your appeal, or it's probably not going anywhere. But we'll get into more of that in a moment. Let me go ahead and continue on from here, because I want to go over the criteria so I can get rid of this stupid idea that's been spread all over the place about how people think it's just so easy to get supplemental security income and game the system. Honey, there is no gaming the system. Believe me, if there were a way, I would have found out about it a long damn time ago. There isn't, okay? There's no get out of jail free card. There's no way to submit an application and all of a sudden people start depositing money into your account. It's not how any of this works at all. But we'll get into why that is, how difficult it actually is, and all the work that you have to do, paperwork-wise, doctors-wise, medical history-wise, and even to be considered to get supplemental security income. So, let me go again and continue here. Is a resident of one of the 50 states, the District of Columbia, or the Northern Mariana Islands. Is not absent from the 50 states, the District of Columbia, or the Northern Mariana Islands for a full calendar month, or for 30 consecutive days or more. Is not confined to an institution such as a hospital or prison at the government's expense, applies for any other cash benefits or payments for which he or she may be eligible, for example, pensions, Social Security benefits, gives SSA permission to contact any financial institution or request any financial records about them, files an application, and meets certain other requirements. Now, we're going to go into a little bit more detail. What does aged mean? Age means 65 or older. Blindness. Blindness in our disability programs means you have a central visual acuity for distance of 2200 or less in your better eye with use of a correcting lens, or you have a field vision limitation in your better eye such that the widest diameter of the visual field subtends an angle no greater than 20 degrees. If you have a visual impairment but are not blind according to our rules as defined above, you may still be eligible for SSI benefits on the basis of disability. See the definitions of disability for children and adults below. We're going to go over this and then we'll eventually get into a lot more depth about it, alright? Okay. If you are under age 18, we may consider you disabled if you have a medically determinable physical or mental impairment, including an emotional or learning problem that results marked in severe functional limitations and can be expected to result in death, or has lasted or can be expected to last for a continuous period of not less than 12 months. If you are 18 or older, the adult definition of disability explained below applies. See, of course, we're going to leave that link in if you want to dig in more on the side that has to do with childhood supplemental security income. So what does disabled mean for an adult? If you are age 18 or older, we may consider you disabled if you have a medically determinable physical or mental impairment, including emotional or learning problem, or as I prefer to put it because it makes more sense, either physically, you're a disabled person by physical means, or you're disabled like me because you have developmental delays, which results in inability to do any substantial gainful activity. Again, like I promised, we're going to go into more depth in regards to what exactly that is, what it looks like, and how it is judged. Once we get this finished up, we'll probably start on that coming up Thursday next week. Can be expected to result in death or has lasted or can be expected to last for a continuous period of not less than 12 months. SSA is committed to providing benefits quickly to claimants whose medical conditions are so serious that their conditions clearly meet disability standards. Compassionate allowance, also known as CAL, are a way to quickly identify diseases and other medical conditions that by definition meet Social Security standards for disability benefits. These conditions primarily include certain cancers, adult brain disorders, and a number of rare disorders that affect children. The CAL initiative helps reduce waiting time to reach a disability determination for individuals with most serious disabilities. So, in layman's terms, if you're autistic like myself, we get to wait. And that is something that has pretty much been literally always the case. There has been some exceptions, but by and large, by incorporating cutting-edge technology, the agency can easily identify potential CAL to quickly make decisions. SSA receives information from the public, advocacy groups, comments received from the Social Security and Disability Determination Services communities, counsels from medical and scientific experts, research from the National Institute of Health, also known as NIH, and information received from past public outreach hearings regarding potential CAL conditions. And right there, you'll be able to click on it because we're going to have the link for this here right there in the description box for you, or you can wait and we'll go ahead and go over it in more detail as we start going over strictly eligibility criteria, so y'all can see just exactly how easy it is to so-called get into these programs. Alright, what does limited income include? Income for purposes of SSI include money you earn from work, money you receive from other sources such as Social Security benefits, workers' compensation, unemployment benefits, the Department of Veteran Affairs, friends or relatives, and free food or shelter. Now, they have a little disclaimer. I'm going to go ahead and read it. We do not count all income for SSI, but income that we do count reduces your SSI benefit amount. That is a fact. In fact, that particular fact that has caused me all kinds of trouble in my early 20s. So we'll be definitely going through that here directly because I got all kinds of experience with that one. For more information, see SSI income. We will be going over that in more detail a little bit later. What are limited resources? Resources for the purposes of SSI are things you own such as cash, bank accounts, stocks, mutual funds, and U.S. savings bonds, land, vehicles, personal property, life insurance, and anything you own that could be converted to cash and used for food or shelter. Now, they do make out that we do not count the value of all your resources, and again, we'll be going through that in a little bit. The SSI limits for resources that we do count here are individual or child 2,000, couple 3,000. Well, there's a change. During my time, top amount was $650 a month. Ask me if I was able to live off that. Alright, let me go ahead and continue here. By the way, that's not a good thing. Remember the fact that we've got major inflation going on. So that $2,000 that looks so nice right now, yeah, that. Citizen and non-citizen status. To get SSI, you must be a citizen or national of the United States or a non-citizen who is a qualified alien or one of the certain alien classifications granted by the Department of Homeland Security. So no, we're not talking about an illegal alien who just gets on the short list and automatically gets health care or free Social Security benefits. Anyone who actually believes that knows absolutely nothing about the subject whatsoever. Let's go down below so we can get into a little bit more in regards to that. When a non-citizen is eligible for SSI, this was beginning August 22nd, 1996. Most non-citizens must meet two requirements to be eligible for SSI. They must be in a qualified alien category and meet a condition that allows qualified aliens to get SSI. A non-citizen must also meet all of the other requirements for SSI eligibility, including the limits on income, resources, etc. Now, who is a qualified alien? Well, that goes into a little bit more depth. I'm a little bit more concerned in regards to disability. But what we'll do, because it looks like that this is going to be a little bit of a long one, is we're going to go ahead and half this video. It looks like we're going to have to. So, let's try to go ahead and get through this. We'll see here. There are 7 categories of non-citizens who are qualified aliens. You're a qualified alien if the Department of Homeland Security says you are in one of these categories. Lawfully admitted for permanent residence, LAPR, in the U.S., including Armenian immigrant as defined in PL 100-202 with a class admission AM1 through AM8. 2. Granted conditional entry under Section 203A7 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, INA, as in effect before April the 1st, 1980. Number 3, paroled into the U.S. under Section 212D5 of the INA for a period of at least 1 year. Number 4, refugee admitted to the U.S. under Section 207 of the INA. Number 5, granted asylum under Section 208 of the INA. Number 6, deportation is being withheld under Section 243H of the INA as in effective before April the 1st, 1997, or removal is being withheld under Section 241B3 of the INA. A Cuban or Haitian entrant under Section 501E of the Refugee Education Assistance Act of 1980 or in a status that is to be treated as a Cuban or Haitian entrant for SSI purposes. In addition, you can be deemed qualified alien if under certain circumstances you, your child, or your parent has been subjected to battery or extreme cruelty by a family member while in the United States. Now, under what conditions is a qualified alien eligible for SSI? If you are one of the 7 qualified alien categories listed above or have been determined to be deemed qualified alien because you have been subjected to battery or extreme cruelty, you may be eligible for SSI benefits if you have limited income and resources and are blind, aged blind, or disabled, and also meet one of the following conditions. You were receiving SSI and lawfully residing in the U.S. on August the 22nd, 1996. You are lawfully admitted for permanent residence, LEPR, with 40 qualifying quarters of earnings. Work by your spouse or parents may also count toward the 40 quarters of earnings, but only for getting SSI. We cannot count quarters of earnings earned after December 31st, 1996. If you, your spouse, or your parents worked or received certain benefits from the U.S. government based on limited income and resources during that period. Important, if you entered the U.S. on or after August 22nd, 1996, then you may not be eligible for SSI for the first 5 years as a LAPR, even if you count 40 qualifying quarters of earnings. You are currently on active duty. 3. You are current active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces, or you are an honorably discharged veteran, and your discharge is not because you are a non-citizen. This condition may also apply if you are the spouse, surviving spouse, or dependent child of certain U.S. military personnel. You are lawfully residing in the U.S. on August 22nd, 1996, and you are blind or disabled. You may receive SSI for a maximum of 7 years from the date DHS granted you qualified alien status in one of the following categories, and the status was granted within 7 years of filing for SSI. 1 minute, folks. I gotta get a cough drop. Allergies have been crazy today. Alright. So, refugee admitted under the U.S. under Section 207 of the Immigration and Nationality Act. Asylee admitted into the U.S. under Section 208 of the INA. Sorry about that. Non-citizen whose deportation was withheld under Section 243H of the INA, or whose removal is withheld under Section 214B3 of the INA, admitted as a Cuban or Haitian entrant, as defined under Section 501E of the Refugee Education Assistance Act of 1980, or in a status that is to be treated as a Cuban or Haitian entrant for SSI purposes, or Asian immigrant pursuant to PL 100-202 with a class admission of AM1 or AM8. Alright, I think we can push through it. Let's give it a go. Let's see if my voice will stick with us here. Exemption from the August the 22nd, 1996 law for certain non-citizen Indians. Certain categories of non-citizens may be eligible for SSI and are not subject to August the 22nd, 1996 law. These categories include American Indians born in Canada who were admitted to the United States under Section 289 of the INA, or non-citizen members of a federally recognized Indian tribe who fall under Section 4E of the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act. Whew, sorry folks. Let's see how much we still got to go. Alright. You know what? Let's give it a go. We're gonna give it a try. Alright, additional eligible non-citizen categories. Victims of severe forms of human trafficking. You may be eligible for SSI under certain circumstances if the Department of Health and Human Services Office of Refugee Resettlement and the Department of Homeland Security determine that you meet the requirements of the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000. Iraqi and Afghan special immigrants. If you are an Iraqi or Afghan national who was admitted to the U.S. as a special immigrant, you may qualify for 7 years of SSI benefits if you served as a translator or interpreter for the U.S. Armed Forces in Iraq or Afghanistan, or if you work for the U.S. government in Iraq. I guarantee you, folks, that is not the majority of us who are on supplemental security income, in spite of what Trump's GOP is trying to tell you. For real though. Afghan humanitarian parolee or Afghan non-special immigrant parolee. You may qualify for SSI if you are an Afghan humanitarian parolee or Afghan non-special immigrant parolee. On September the 30th, 2021, Congress passed the Afghanistan Supplemental Appropriations Act 2022, and the Section 2502 of this legislation provides that Afghan humanitarian parolees known as non-special immigrant parolees may qualify for SSI until March 31st, 2023, or until the end of their parole period, which is later. Ukrainian humanitarian parolee. If you are a Ukrainian humanitarian parolee and were paroled between February the 24th, 2022 and September the 30th, 2024, or paroled after September the 30th, 2023, if you are the spouse or child of such an individual or parent, legal guardian, or primary caregiver of an unaccompanied minor that is such an individual, you may qualify for SSI. Certain citizens of the Compact of the Free Association States, CFA. You may qualify if you are a citizen of the Federated States of Micronesia, Republic of the Marshall Islands, and the Republic of Palau, including certain spouses or children under the age of 21 of a citizen of the Federated States of Micronesia or the Republic of Marshall Islands, regardless of their citizenship or nationality, provided that the citizen on which their relationship is based is serving on active duty in any branch of the United States Armed Forces or in active reserves. We will do some more spotlight on the SSI benefits for non-citizens, because that's what the Republicans are using right now to get everyone freaking out. The narrative that they are trying to push right now is that we got a whole bunch of non-citizens that are just bleeding Social Security dry. I hate to bust the GOP's bubble here, but the majority of the individuals who are on supplemental security income are on it because they are disabled in some way. And it is a level of being disabled that it affects it affects your ability to be able to function out in the world. Okay? And we'll get into more of that criteria here in a little bit, but I wanted to make that point because there is this idea the GOP and the stupid chair Mike Johnson, evil Phil Hartman. If evil Phil Hartman had an evil... You see where I'm going with that, right? They're sitting there like everybody that's on it, they're lazy playing video games in their mom's basement, or they're illegal aliens. When the fact of the matter is, that is not actually true. In regards to supplemental security income, most of us that have received it I'm no longer on it. I haven't been on it since 2008. Yeah, I think it was 2008. About around that time period. Most of them are disabled. Okay? And we're going to go over all the freaking hoops you have to jump through. If you're a disabled person applying to get SSI, and because the GOP has done gone and pissed me the fuck off, we're also going to go into depth in regards to these so-called non-citizens that are stealing our monies, because I just can't tolerate the nonsense anymore from either side. Either side. We got arrogant told you so Democrats. And just so you know, Democrats, that's why you lost. It's your arrogance. It's your condescension. It's the way that you speak to American citizens, particularly blue-collar citizens, as though you're better than us. And please don't tell me, no, I don't think that, I don't. Listen to the tone of your own voice sometime when you're speaking on news channels. And then tell me if you would tolerate someone talking to you like that. Okay? I know, especially what it's like to be condescended down to. That is what you all sound like. Okay? And then you have the GOP, who has decided, like, everybody's stealing from us, and just this completely irrational, batshit insane, not really happening whatsoever idea that these people have. Anyways, sorry about the side rant and going to left field and then taking a left turn and then another left turn. But my point is, we're going to go through each of these in depth so that individuals will be shoved in front of the mirror and be forced to look at just how easy it is to get on supplemental security income. But I digress. Let me go again and continue here. What is residency? You must live in one of the 50 states, the District of Columbia, or the Northern Mariana Islands with the intent to continue living within these geographic limits, or be a child living with a parent in the military service assigned to permanent duty ashore anywhere outside of the U.S., or be a student temporarily abroad for the purpose of conducting studies as a part of an educational program. Alright, who is not eligible for SSI? Some of examples of who is not eligible for SSI include, but are not limited to, someone who has an unsatisfied felony or arrest warrant. You are ineligible to receive SSI benefits for any months during which you have an unsatisfied felony or arrest warrant for escape from custody or flight to avoid prosecution or confinement or flight escape. In addition, we cannot pay you any retroactive payments if you have one of these unsatisfied felony or arrest warrants. We will hold your retroactive payments until you contact SSA and provide proof that you satisfied the felony or arrest warrant. Someone who is in prison or jail. If you are receiving SSI and you go to prison or jail, this also includes correctional institutions such as detention centers, halfway houses, boot camps, etc., but does not necessarily include home confinement. You're not eligible to receive SSI for any full calendar month you are incarcerated. In addition, we cannot pay any retroactive payments for benefits due before you were incarcerated. We will hold the retroactive payments until you contact SSA and provide proof that you are no longer a prisoner. And they have a little pamphlet there. We won't get into all of that. Alright, someone who's in a public institution. If you are in an institution for a whole month that is run by a federal, state, or local government, you are not eligible for SSI for that month unless exception applies, such as residents in a public emergency shelter for the homeless or publicly operated community residence, such as group home, for example. If you expect to leave the institution, you may use the pre-release procedure described in the SSI Spotlight on Pre-Release Procedure. Someone who gives away resources. If you give away a resource to sell it for less than it is worth in order to reduce your resources below the SSI resource limit, you may be eligible for SSI for up to 36 months. Alright, someone who is a non-citizen SSI recipient who fails to meet the non-citizen status requirements. If you are receiving SSI as a non-citizen and you lose your status as an eligible non-citizen, you're not eligible to receive SSI. For example, your SSI will stop if you lose your status as a qualified non-citizen because there is an active warrant for your deportation or removal from the U.S. If you are a non-citizen but no longer meet the requirements that allow SSI eligibility for non-citizens, then your SSI benefits will stop. Someone who is an SSI recipient who is absent from the U.S. for a full calendar month or for 30 consecutive days or more. Except for certain students temporarily abroad for study purposes or a child of military parents stationed overseas, an individual is not eligible for SSI benefits for any months during all of which he or she is outside of the U.S. Once an individual has been outside the U.S. for 30 consecutive days or longer, he or she must be back in the U.S. for 30 consecutive days to be eligible for SSI benefits. Alright, folks, so that about covers it here. And again, we are, for obvious reasons, going to be getting into more in-depth and require when it comes to what that eligibility criteria is, what is the paperwork you need, all of that good stuff. And the reason why we're going to be doing that, folks, is because there's a whole lot of false narratives out there that are trying to convince everyone that there's a whole bunch of people who are either lazy or illegals who are just taking money and being fraudsters to Social Security, and that this idea that it is just so easy to get SSI, take advantage and abuse it, that I've just finally, after several months of this, I've just had enough. So I want to come here, set the record straight. I'm going to go specifically into detail, more in depth on every little thing we just covered in this video here, so that you can see with your own eyes whether it is easy or not. Because, let's face it, folks, I'm sure you can see it on my face, I'm tired. I'm very, very, very tired. Tired of being lied to. I'm tired of all these false rumors being spread around by individuals who have no idea what they're talking about when they talk on these subjects. So, that being said, folks, we're going to go ahead and close out for this one. We don't get very many views on this channel, and the few we do tend to get removed from time to time. So, folks, you know the drill. If you could, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe. Please don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time, and as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea absolutely do. Hope you have a good one. Now, tomorrow, keep your eye out for your notifications, because we are going to be doing another episode of the Down the Rabbit Hole series on this upcoming Saturday. We are going to continue on with our Medicaid series, where we're going to start going into Medicaid funding and its role in regards to the group home settings, which I promised to get into once we finish the assisted living ones. And then Sunday, of course, we're going to go over the HUD situation and the situation with Section 8. In which case, we're also going to start going over the criteria in regards to Section 8. Because, yeah, I've already had comments telling me how easy that is to get. Yeah, I hate to bust your bubble, but none of this is easy. And a good majority of it, you take a lot of time. Sometimes multiple years, and with Section 8, even after that, you may be on a waiting list until the final trumpet calls and it's time for the end battle of it all to happen. So, I hope you have a good one. I will see you all later. Bye-bye now.